Yeah, and so the Army had projects, Zombie 1 through 4, I think they got up to. They may have continued them. And it was how to create a kind of a Manchurian candidate, but in a more hypnotized state. And so they were zombified in the sense they're disassociated from the regular mind. And splitting personalities is something that's been studied through abuse as one of the major mechanisms by which it happens. And so a lot of people who are tortured, they're not aware of why they're being tortured. They're just saying they're evil entities. Well, there's probably a goal behind it, and splitting the personalities has been, at least in the CIA, one of the many goals of abuse, to try to create these various super spies or agents, if you will, that have no direct connection to the agency, so they're plausibly denied.
They use the CIA paradigm of sensory deprivation and self-inflicted pain, and then they stretched it. Okay, they added to it.
CIA psychologists use Dr. Cameron's experiments on sensory deprivation and overload, along with the Cold War SEER program, to create a horrific mix of torture techniques.
We're talking about frequencies actually altering the heart's pattern, causing arrhythmias, causing it to weaken its pulses. They're very clever ways, because we are electromagnetic systems ultimately. And so frequencies, these kinds of energies can alter thoughts, brain functions, and heart and nervous system functions as well. The autonomic and sympathetic nervous systems, which are basically the subconscious systems that keep us alive, our blood pumping and everything working together to keep the body alive.
So there is like this Air Force 1984, I think is version 4, dosimetry manual. And in there, it tells exactly, like, if you want to give somebody a heart attack, if you want to shut their kidneys down, if you want to do this, if you want to do that, and what frequency it is that impacts that. Now, that was back in 1984, so this is not anything new, but the technology's moving forth just built on that.
Yeah. So, and that's, you bring up another interesting topic. So probably, let's say you want to probabilistically kill someone, totally silent, plausibly denied. One way to do it is...
Maybe give us an idea of how this could happen in the United States.
There have been experiments that prove that both acoustic waves, directed waves in the ultrasound, primarily in the ultrasound band, but also electromagnetic directed energy, especially pulsed nanosecond energy beams in the millimeter band, through something called the Frey effect, which converts electromagnetic energy into an acoustic band wave that can be within or without or outside of the audible band.
In ordinary sound perception, sound that goes into the ear canal gets amplified by the small bones in the middle ear, and then gets to the inner ear where the cochlea resides, and in the cochlea is converted to electrical impulse. But in the case of a microwave auditory effect, the source is electromagnetic. So if you expose the biological tissue to a pulse of microwave energy, the tissue expands and induces a vibration. This is being used for mind control.
They figured out how to biocode these microwaves so that it can attack specific individuals.
They basically analyze your DNA, and they then use supercomputers to encode the signals.
It's not just a very disturbing high-pitched noise, but there might even be voices or a message, a continual message that people have been victimized by.
Guys, if your assessments here are correct, these are very covert weapons, aren't they?
That's correct. There's no entry or exit wound. How they're designed is to make the target feel like they're crazy, like they're imagining things.
And you guys also said that these attacks are happening right here in this city. Is that correct?
I mean, there have been some that have gone public with respect to Washington, D.C.
I think it was Mr. Grozev said you spoke to a Russian agent who said that they believe that Americans are using these same weapons on them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Might that have something to do with part of the CIA's motive to cover up the existence of this tech and these weapons?
That is a very logical possibility.
Thank you.
Mr. Zaid, I want to ask, and this is a hypothetical, but I'm trying to understand why our government would try to block information sharing or conceal information that they have. And one thing that comes to mind is whether there's an operational risk to revealing any of the details of their investigation. Is that something that you have come across in any of your work?
There's a lot of reasons why the information might not be publicly released. And I do think that's something we could address more in a classified environment to explain that. But there are understandable reasons why the U.S. government has not revealed much of what it knows.
The American Psychological Association is the world's largest organization of psychologists and probably has the most influence over the community of psychologists around the world.
Secretly, the APA permitted psychologists working in the torture program to override their ethical code of do no harm if the military and CIA required it.
The program of abusive interrogations, the program of torture at the CIA was designed by psychologists, and at Guantanamo was designed by a psychologist and a psychiatrist after they were trained in the techniques and in the program of the CIA abuses. And that's when I could basically stand it no more.
The goal psychologically was to create the most dreadful conditions you could establish for a human being. And the enhancement to that, if there was an enhancement, was based on a program called Learned Helplessness.
Recently released CIA documents refer to the feasibility of remote control of animals, and that special investigations will be conducted toward the application of selected elements of these techniques to man.
Scientists have long experimented on animals to determine human behavior. In 1967, Dr. Martin Seligman began a series of tests using electric shocks on dogs.
He was able to determine that if you indiscriminately abused a dog, gave them electrical shocks, even if they could avoid those shocks, they would just submit to them. They would learn to be helpless. These dogs would learn helplessness.
Their aim was to undermine the basically mental independence of detainees, the instincts for self-preservation, the ability to think and choose, using techniques modeled on what Seligman did to his dogs.
The psychologists actually designed a program based on those SEER techniques and the theory of learned helplessness, and then tried to apply those theories to human beings.
So the idea was that you could undermine the basic instincts of survival of an animal if you traumatized them or tortured them enough.
War is a strategic business. Our our planning and our execution needs to be really well thought out. And it has consequences for years. I was in conversations with the Department of Defense and with the White House, and I learned that we had psychiatrists and psychologists who were advising the interrogation teams. Then I learned that they were not just advising, that they were involved. I was stunned. It's taken all this time for me to build the picture of what's been involved here and the secrecy that was behind this torture program.
The role of psychologists in this torture program astounds me. I saw that we're heading down a road that I knew was going to be a disaster. And so I was taking those torture logs and other information, and I was sending them through classified channels. I wasn't a whistleblower. I wouldn't talk to the media, and I wouldn't disclose classified information. I was sending this information through my chain of command to say, the Department of Defense is about to torture people.
In 2002, Mark put his neck on the line and warned his superiors that the CIA were using torture.
I felt like there was an avalanche. You could see these boulders coming down, and you could wave your arms and you could try to stop it. But I could not stop what was happening. The bloodthirst to torture people was just too great for any one person to stop. The order to abuse prisoners was unlawful. But to build up to that unlawful order, they needed justification. And so what they did was they sent a colonel to Guantanamo to look and try to justify what was going on. And he said, Guantanamo Bay is America's battle lab. And the moment I heard that, it evoked memories of Nuremberg. It evoked memories of what the Nazis were doing. Experiments.
Do no harm, which is the psychologist's ethics code, was given up, I think, by different psychologists involved in the CIA and the military for different reasons. For the American Psychological Association, there was what I would consider collusion, and worse, they took a blind eye to the abuses that were being reported.
There is absolutely no evidence, absolutely not a shred of evidence that these tactics used on these men really gave us any intelligence that was important or useful to our country.
Oh, this is absolutely war crimes. We knew there were war crimes.
In August 2017, the two psychologists who created the CIA's torture program were about to be put on trial.
We were soldiers doing what we were instructed to do. We knew it was lawful. We knew it was legal. We knew it had been vetted and approved.
Do you think it's possible, as a psychologist, that an individual who was subjected to them suffered long-term physical or psychological harm?
Objection.
Do you think it's possible that sleep deprivation taken to the extreme could induce severe mental pain or suffering?
Objection.
The CIA settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. No liability was admitted.
I am asking Congress to ensure that in the fight against ISIS and Al-Qaeda, we continue to have all necessary power to detain terrorists wherever we chase them down, wherever we find them. And in many cases, for them, it will now be Guantanamo Bay.
Our war on terror begins with Al-Qaeda, but it does not end there.
The list of Havana syndrome-like symptoms, which my South Pole crew and many South Pole crews are suffering, that other agencies are suffering, if people pay really close attention, they're going to notice that these symptoms are prevalent in the general population as well.
Oh, I'm with you.
Who's been doing it for the last decade or so?
I'm with you.
right?
100% with you.
So now when we look around the world and we see everybody acting the way that they are acting, let's consider that these intrusive thoughts have already been present. What do we do about this? These are the weapons of war contemporarily. It's very unfortunate, but it used to be that war was a bit more noble. When we selected people, we put them in uniforms, we sent them over there to the battlefield, and we said, fight for us. And effectively, that would have been an act of attrition of each nation's resources until there was a victor. Now, unfortunately, they've circumnavigated the battlefield. Nobody's dressed in uniforms anymore, and the front line is every neighborhood that we're in. And the infrastructure is still under attack. It's just that now the average mortgage payer is in the line of fire. And I think this is a weapon of war that we are seeing happen to everyone around us. The Department of Defense recently started initiating protocols for their employees, their agents, to discuss Havana syndrome-like symptoms. And on that list is that their agents are hearing voices in their head. And this is what they're getting at. This is that technology.